This video is going to cover 4 different examples on using the sum and difference formulas specifically for cosine. So cosine has a sum and then a difference version of its formula. So I have both of them merged into one here. The sum is going to be our top sign here, cosine u plus v. The difference, cosine u minus v. So if we're using the sum formula, it's going to correlate to cosine u cosine v minus sine u sine v. Or if we're using the difference formula, cosine u minus v, that means we're using the bottom sign. So cosine u cosine v plus sine u sine v. So that means for our first example here, we are finding the cosine of 120 minus 45. That means 120 is going to be our u and 45 is going to be our v. So using our formula here, this is going to be cosine of 120 times cosine of 45. And since we're using the difference formula, right, we have a minus. That means we're using the bottom sign, which gives us a plus here. Sine u times sine v. In order to wrap up the problem, we either need to have our unit circle or our scientific calculator available to us in order to calculate these values here. Sine of 120 is a negative 1/2. Cosine 45 is equal to square root of 2 over 2. Drop down your plus sign. And sine of 120 is a square root of 3 over 2. Sine of 45 is a square root of 2 over 2. Again, you can throw in this work into your calculator if you are allowed a calculator in order to simplify. Otherwise, simplifying this down by hand real quick here, multiplying our numerators here gives us a negative square root of 2 over a 4 plus a square root of 6 over a 4. Since we do have common denominators, let's go ahead and put those common denominators together there. And we're going to have a square root of 6 minus a square root of 2 over a 4. So for our next example, cosine 45 plus 30. So we are going to be using the sum formula over here. So cosine u plus v. So we're going to be using our top sign over here. So this is going to look like cosine of 45 times cosine of 30. Again, top symbol here, so that's going to be a minus. Sine 45, sine 30. Calculating our values here, cosine of 45 is a square root of 2 over 2. Cosine of 30 is a square root of 3 over our 2. Drop down your minus sign. Sine 45 is a square root of 2 over 2. And sine 30 is 1/2. Multiply these together, giving us square root of 6 over 4 here, minus a square root of 2 over 4. Again, writing these all as a single fraction, this is going to give us the square root of 6 minus the square root of 2 over a 4. For our third example, we are given cosine of 105. Now, we're having to find the sum, or we're having to use the sum and difference formulas here, which means we need a u and a v, right? Cosine of something plus something, cosine of something minus something. And we're just given cosine of 105 here. Now, what we can do with this problem here is we can take the 105, and 105 is not one of the common angles around our unit circle, but what we can do is we can break up this 105, and as long as we have 2 separate angles, which are general angles on our unit circle that add up to 105, we're okay. So what I mean by that is instead of 105, what I can do is I can say that this is cosine of 45 plus 60. All right, since 45 plus 60 is 105, now I have this written as a sum, which that means I can now use the rule for the sum over here, cosine of u plus v, which is going to be cosine of 45 times cosine of 60 plus sine of 45 times sine of 60. Find the following values and simplify. Cosine 45 is a square root of 2 over 2. Cosine of 60 is 1/2. I'm sorry, I just realized we are using the sum formula, which means I should have a minus here. I'm so sorry about that, right? Cosine u plus v is going to be the minus here. So dropping down that minus here, sine of 45 is a square root of 2 over 2, and sine of 60 is a square root of 3 over 3. Multiplying these together gives us a square root of 2 over 4. Minus a square root of 6 over 4. And again, if we join these together as a single fraction, square root of 2 minus square root of 6 over a 4. For our last example here, we have cosine of 7 pi over 12. Now, so we need to think about how can we take 7 pi over 12 and split this into two different angles here. So the ones that come to mind for me is I am going to take 7 pi over 12 and I'm going to split this up between cosine pi over 3 plus pi over 4. Right, if we take pi over 3 plus pi over 4, again, and we get common denominators here, all right, I need common denominator is a 12, so we do end up with 4 pi over 12 plus 3 pi over 12, which is a 7 pi over 12, right? Any two that add or subtract to 7 pi over 12 is perfectly fine. Just the ones that popped into my head were pi over 3 and pi over 4. So that's going to be what I go with there. Any other combination, again, as long as it does add or subtract to 7 pi over 12, you're more than welcome to use, as long as it is a radian measure on the unit circle. All right. So otherwise, we are using the sum formula here. So that means our symbol in between is going to be a minus. So we are going to do cosine of pi over 3 times cosine of pi over 4 minus sine pi over 3 times sine pi over 4. Cosine of pi over 3 is a 1/2, and cosine of pi over 4 is a square root of 2 over 2. Drop down your minus sign, and sine pi over 3 is a square root of 3 over 2, and sine pi over 4 is a square root of 2 over 2. Multiply and simplify here, leaving us with the square root of 2 over 4 minus a square root of 6 over 4, or again, bringing our common denominators together, square root of 2 minus square root of 6 over a 4.